welcome to another fast track session for our shop shoulder and off peak event. I'm delighted to be joined today by Pio Macchiarulo of Get Your Guide. Hello, Pio.
Hello, Rachel. Thank you for your invitation.
It's a real pleasure to have you along. I know you've been sort of heavily involved with ETOA and our ticketing and attractions area. So we're really pleased that you can join us today, Pio, because what we want to talk about in this session is another important piece of the picture in managing visitor volumes, which is dispersal from the pinch points and the value that that represents for destinations. And Get Your Guide have done a really interesting study about this, well, starting in Italy, but we'll come on to a sort of other destinations as well. But they've got a lot of fresh insights into how experiential travel is kind of shaping the way that visitors behave and what impact that can have on destination economies. So really pleased to have you here, Pio. So tell us about your study.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. I'm Pio Macchiarulo, and I lead strategic account and institutional relations at Get Your Guide. In this study today, I want to talk about sustainable tourism, but not in an abstract way. We're going to see some numbers, some facts, hard data about the research, the study that we commissioned last year to an independent party. So the Professor Guido Guerzoni and Formules, the specialized company that has run the numbers on this analysis for Get Your Guide. Maybe just before going into the agenda, let me spend 30 seconds on Get Your Guide. For those of you who don't know, Get Your Guide is the world's leading marketplace for travel experiences. So it's the largest in the world. You can book anything from entrance tickets to guided tours, to day trips, boat excursions, and so on and so forth, you name it. And it's present all around the world, in any city in the world. What is probably most important for this webinar is the fact that we've been present in Italy for over 10 years. So we know the market, we know the institutions involved into the market, and we are very much engaged into finding the best way to build value for the overall ecosystem. All right, moving forward, the agenda. First, we're gonna start from the challenge. Here, I'm gonna spend really 1 minute just with the two big numbers that we need to reflect on about the overall industry. And then the second piece is where we're gonna spend most of the time. So we're gonna see the research and the results of the research that is answering to the question, what is Get Your Guide customer? How does it look like compared to the overall challenge that we have seen in terms of global concentration of demand. Then we're going to move to how Get Your Guide is partnering up with local institutions and DMOs at the moment. And last bit is going to be on next steps, and in particular, the new study that we're commissioning for this year. All right, and Rachel, feel free to interrupt me with any question or comment.
I will be ready with my interruptions, Pio.
Super. All right, the challenge. The challenge, you may have already seen, read, heard these numbers. This is about the global concentration of the demand in tourism. So we know that the vast majority, 95% for the UNWTO of visitors actually visit the 5% of the world. So it's very concentrated demand. This is true for Italy as well. This is a global challenge with very local consequences that we all know when we talk about over-tourism. But this has got two sides, this story. So there are over-tourism issues in very specific destinations, in particular in Italy. We all know them: Rome, Florence, Venice, the Amalfi Coast. And then there is a huge number of destinations that are suffering from under-tourism. So there you have the challenge and the opportunity as well. So the question is not really how do we cap visitors. The question is how do we spread this demand? So starting from this narrative, we decided in Get Your Guide to commission this research where the objective was really to understand, is Get Your Guide currently part of the problem? Are we bringing visitors and customers to the same places? How does it compare with the average visitor that is coming to Italy? And then the follow-up question is, what can we do about it? How can we move forward in the right direction? In particular, because we feel the responsibility as market leader to have a positive impact in the industry, because as we know, if the impact is not going to be positive, we're going to see backlash, as we are already seeing in many destinations about tourism effects. So that's where we commissioned this research, and let me say briefly how this was conducted. Two big pieces of data. The first one is a data set that we shared with the Professor Guerzoni with over 400 million data sales, with all the bookings that we had in Italy in a specific time frame, so January 23 to June 25, to analyze that big piece of data independently by Guerzoni. And then we added the survey, a survey that was conducted in June 25 to international visitors that were planning their trip to Italy. So they have booked at least one experience on GetYourGuide for Italy. And on this survey, we got a bit more color. So what are these people looking for? What is their plan in terms of trip, how much they spend, and so on and so forth. This is how the research was built. Now, let's dive into the results. There's going to be many numbers, but bear with me. First big number. GetYourGuide customers are spending on average almost 500 euro per day per person. This is 3 to 4 times higher than the Italian benchmark. This is a big number. We know it's coming with as you said, wow. Also, when we saw it, we knew it was going to be higher than the average, but this much higher. These are customers that are used to spend much more for vacations. It's also important to make a distinction here, because it's also true that we're not comparing likes with likes, because when we talk about GetYourGuide customers, these are people that are already very well engaged with the destination, because they book experiences, so they want to know and learn more about a specific destination. So it's very different from, let's say, someone that is coming for a conference, for example. But that's probably exactly the point, right? So if destinations want to evolve their model of tourism, they should know what kind of traveler they want to attract, not just how many arrivals they want to reach as a number.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, Pierre, we often talk about sort of the right kind of tourist, don't we, in terms of that. And I think in terms of dispersal, the first step in having the right kind of tourist is the one that's actually interested in going somewhere different, isn't it?
Exactly.
It's a question of how you kind of stimulate that interest. But yeah, I think it's really interesting, actually, that point. And in a moment, we'll come on to it a little bit more in terms of where that leads. But I mean, it's really striking that experientially driven travelers spend so much more.
Absolutely. It's very interesting, and it's a great assist for the overall industry, because when we talk about the industry of experiences that is still forming also some sort of unified vision, this is a key aspect. We need to invest even more in analyzing how our customer is different from the average, because the direction that we saw in this study, and we're going to mention also another study that is kind of confirming this data, is that this experiential demand is actually coming from people that are spending much more in destination. And then if we see the breakdown is also very useful, because it tells us that this money are actually staying in the local economy. Most of it is for local operators, local entrepreneurs, cultural venues. This is money that is staying in the economy. And then this was also very useful for the research firm to calculate the overall economic impact that we'll see later on in the presentation. Second important number, how long do these people stay? 8.2 nights. This is basically twice as the average number of nights that are reported by Italian entities. This is very important, and it's in the narrative about experiential tourism. This also makes sense, because these are people that are coming to really, experience a destination. So they want to know more. So they want to do more activities. And so they will need more days. It's not just a sightseeing through the city and then they're off. Now let's go to my favorite slide. This is probably the single piece that most talks about sustainable tourism. Why? Because here we are saying, where are these people going? Because, okay, they're spending a lot. Okay, they're staying longer than average, but where are they going? Get Your Guide customers have reached basically all Italian provinces, almost 900 municipalities. And out of these 900 or 867 municipalities, more than half have fewer than 10,000 inhabitants. These are small towns. These are very small towns, local borghi, places that these people are mostly discovering, also thanks to Get Your Guide in this case, and thanks to the experiences they're making, they're planning to do.
Do you know, Pia, I agree. This is a fantastic slide. I love it too, and I hope Italy does. But I think what's sort of interesting about this is it's always good to start with your role model tourists, isn't it? Your high spending sort of people who are keen on research. They are interested in experiences. They want to look beyond the obvious. And I just wonder if in this, obviously, you've managed to encourage them out to some, really far-flung places. Um, what should destinations do about the less engaged traveller? The one that maybe doesn't research this and doesn't find this. What do you think? What could we do to help replicate this behaviour with those kind of travellers?
Yeah, I think you touched a very important nerve here, because what is the prerequisite to a sustainable destination? And I know sustainable, it's a bit of a word that is got a little bit tired. There are many other names that we could give it, but you know what I mean. So if a destination wants to be sustainable, it needs its visitors to plan in advance, needs visitors to organize their trip in advance. And this is a prerequisite, because in order to manage crowds, there are many services that we often don't think about, but that municipalities need to arrange: the garbage, the public transports, and so on and so forth. So they need to know in advance how many people are coming. And the more people plan in advance, the better they can also understand what is the actual offer, local offer in the place. And they may be then, brought to stay a little bit more, to spend one extra night or two extra nights and so on. So the preparation, the organization, the planning is crucial. And this should be a key objective for the overall industry. So we, of course, are a platform that is doing marketing at a very high funnel, so inspiration and so on. Not all DMOs and municipalities can do that, but they need to push on this hard. And probably one topic where they should be doing more is the digitalization. Many of these municipalities, many of these places have local cultural sites, museums, and venues that are not digitalized. It's super important that these attractions go online, come online to the platforms in a multi-channel strategy, because in this way they become visible. It's easier for platforms and for partners to promote the destinations in a bigger way, to attract visitors to the destinations, to make them stay longer, and to book in advance. It's a bit of a virtuous cycle that we need to kickstart from the digitalization. That's the first step.
Yeah, I think that's actually another point I was going to raise, Pio, about the connectivity here is, like you say, some places would like to do it. It's perhaps just a bit of a challenge, but I think maybe you might have found this as well. There's probably some of these small guys out there that just don't want to. That they kind of go, look, I take 6 people a day. I've got 6 people a day by whatever means. I don't want to be seen. Do you think that sort of is a bit of a barrier sometimes?
I would say it's a cultural barrier, yes. In few places you see this, but as we learned in the most developed destinations, this is a barrier that it gets, overcome in a short amount of time. consider that, for example, in Get Your Guide, the vast majority of bookings come through connected sources. So it's API connected with channel managers and so on. This is a Swift that was already done with the local operators in the past years. And the real challenge, where I see the real challenge, is the connectivity situation for the attractions. That's where we're still struggling, and this is a work we are also doing with ETOA in Italy in particular. And this is a key element that is still missing. There has been some advancements, but it's much slower. Just to give you an example, the state-owned ticketing system for hundreds of museums, Musei Italiani, this is putting online, digitalizing the offer of many small museums in very little towns as well. At the moment, is not yet connected to other distribution partners. This is a big opportunity that we're currently missing. We've done one step with the digitalization. This second step of the connectivity, as you mentioned, is a key, because otherwise we cannot do this additional mile that is actually the last mile that we need to distribute and to make these places known.
Yes, I'm sure. Indeed. Let's move on with your next slide. We've had this one up for ages. We've enjoyed it, Pia.
And I think it's very connected to what we were saying, this slide here, because here we see that in the study, what emerged is that 18% of the people say that the Get Your Guide experience was key reason to choose the destination. This is exactly what we were doing, what we were saying. 1/5 is basically saying, I went there because there was this experience. So this is, of course, most probably not related to the big destinations. It's not Florence, it's not Rome, but it's a little town in Tuscany or in Veneto or in Apulia, where the visitors decided to go because there was a very cool experience to do. And so they decided for that destination. And then in most of these cases, also they extended their stay by at least one night. The quality and quantity of experiences make a difference. This is something the industry has been saying for quite a few years, that the experiences sector, from being an appendix of the overall travel industry with little impact, has now become a key aspect to plan the trip and to choose the destination, to choose how long to stay for travelers. And this has been completely reflected in our numbers in a very clear way.
Mm-hmm.
To complete the picture of these Get Your Guide customers, here you have the source markets. No surprise that Europe is the biggest part. North America weighs over 20%, over 1/5 is coming from North America. And I would say that one interesting bit is also the fact that Italy overall weighs almost 10%. So the platforms are not just for international tourists, but they're also helping locals to discover other parts of their own country. Which is also relevant, an important point to highlight. All right. Now, is this study in Italy an exception? So what we decided, what we asked ourselves is, okay, these results are fantastic. Could they be just one country that is performing this way? And so they're not really representative of the Get Your Guide customer overall. So what we did at the beginning of this year, we commissioned the same study. So we did different data set, but same methodology and same research firm to discover how does the French customer for Get Your Guide look like. And the results are shockingly similar. So we are always talking about high daily spend, longer average nights, and people that are actually engaging with Get Your Guide to choose the destination. So this confirms our belief that Get Your Guide customers, and so customers that are engaged with a destination to explore their experiences and their overall offering, is actually a customer that is bringing much more value to the local economies.
I think that's really interesting, actually, Pia, that you've seen it borne out in France as well. Just to go back to your point about, you were saying the Italian market was about 10% of, this dispersal. France, in particular, is known for its large domestic tourism sector. And I think it's very interesting that you've seen that I guess we don't have the same profile breakdown available yet, but, I wonder if some of those domestic tourists are also doing that. I think that's an interesting point that you see the same in France.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And so we're going deeper into analyzing this market because we feel like we've just scratched the surface, but we're seeing an interesting picture that is coming up as a potential, global trend, or at least European.
Mm.
All right, now to the most difficult slide. I'm not an economist, so I'm just gonna, try to explain it how the Professor Guerzoni explained it to me. But this is the economic impact, and the calculation is actually, yeah, I mean, simpler than it looks. So the way this is calculated, the overall economic impact on an economy, it starts from the tourist expenditure. So the Professor Guerzoni and his team calculated the 5.7 billion as a direct attribution to the Get Your Guide's impact in Italy, starting from the 18% of people that mentioned Get Your Guide as a key reason to visit the destination. So this was the initial assumption, and it came down to this tourist expenditure number. Now, to this number, we need to add the direct effect. The direct effect is related to hotels, restaurants, cultural venues, so the uplift in the tourism-related sectors. Indirect effects are related to the supply chain, and so increase in food, transport, production, and so on. And the induced effect is the additional wages that are then spent locally. The overall impact is therefore calculated as the sum of these four areas as 9 billion. Maybe more interestingly for us, the sentence that you read below. So each euro spent locally by international Get Your Guide visitors generated 1.58 euro in total economic value. This is the sentence that summarizes the value that we can bring to local economies, to local city economies, not just at a country level, and where we can contribute to, building value for the overall community, and not just, not exacerbating a problem that we know is there.
Yeah, I agree, Pierre. That to me is the most kind of important. And maybe what I'm seeing in the future when you've done a few more of these studies is sort of a ranking of destinations. In Italy, it's 1.58. In France, it's however much. But I think that's the key takeaway, really, isn't it? It's that it's kind of, half as much again in terms of economic value.
Absolutely. And so probably to make it a bit more practical now. So far we've seen the Get Your Guide profile that is coming up is a profile that says Get Your Guide customers is not just high value, they're the right kind of traveler. We can summarize it in this way because from the data we see that they're spending more, they're staying longer, and they are actually dispersing geographically much wider than average. So what? That would be the question, right? Okay, so what do we do about it? So our approach in Get Your Guide in the past years, already before this data just gave us additional confirmation that this is the right approach. But our approach has been always to try to discuss, talk, and engage with local institutions at a local level, because we believe that over tourism and under tourism are global challenges, but the solutions need to be local. There is no way that there is a global solution for this.
Mm.
So the local solution needs to be discussed with the local entities, and that's what we tried to do in the past years with pilots, with tests, and experiments that we have done. In this slide, you can see some examples. These are brief examples, but I could talk about Scaligero Castle in Lake Garda, Barcelona with a Mix de la Rambla. There are many other situations where we tested a few specific initiatives. The approach is always the same. So we want to understand what is the problem for the local DMO, what is the problem for the local municipality, and the specific situation and its challenge to see if we can help. In Florence, for example, the approach was to, first of all, remove from the platform alcoholic tours, so pub crawls. They didn't want to promote that kind of tourism on the platform, and distributed behavioral guidelines about the campaign that they're running, Enjoy, Respect, Firenze. And then we're working with them with different initiatives on directing traffic to areas that are outside UNESCO sites. That is really the heart of Florence and that is really overcrowded. Rome, a little bit different, but again, very similar in terms of challenge. They have a city center that is very well crowded, much, a bit different from Florence because there are attraction areas that are a little bit more diverse. But then again, Rome is huge. And at the outskirts of Rome, a few kilometers outside the historic center, they're opening an archaeological site that has got uh, world value in terms of importance of their discoveries. So we financed extraordinary openings before the archaeological park is actually going to be open to the public to make it discovered and discoverable by people that can go there and start discussing and building the awareness around this park that is going to be opened by the end of the year. You can see also Seville, Kyoto. There is a data sharing exercise. There is also tour creation exercise. So depending on the situation, we try to fit with a solution that we want to test together. And then we see if we can scale it to similar destinations across the board.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point you make there, Pio, about the problem being global, but the solution being local. And there's some interesting examples here. And I suppose my question I was thinking is sort of how do we continue this good work? And should it be more tours and activities providers like yourselves or others that should they be kind of leading the way? Do we need more accommodation or do we need more public transport? I mean, it's difficult to know who ought to be leading the charge, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely a challenge in all the aspects because promoting a destination that is that is suffering from under tourism, there are usually, as you said, challenges more related to infrastructure, to accessibility. So how do people get there actually? Where do they stay? And that's something that it's not one man job to solve, right? There is no single actor that can solve it all. So I would say here the approach needs to be coordinated. There is the local administration that is one important actor, but then there is the national a national level. There needs to be a vision and a strategy to work together with the local administrations to make sure that these places are actually accessible and possible to visit. At the same time, I wouldn't stop. I wouldn't advise again to wait for the right moment because the right moment will never really come. The market is moving in a way that you need to sometimes first prove that there is demand so that the infrastructure can come and then the accommodation will come. So our job is to let's digitalize what there is because it's probably already a very good offer in terms of tourism, in terms of activities, and then we will try to share this data and help the administrations to make the right decisions in order to govern the tourism in the right way and build the infrastructures needed, the accommodations needed, and so on.
Yeah, I mean, nobody can do it alone, I guess.
No,
the answer.
absolutely. And what's next? So last bit of the presentation. So as we said, we're just scratching the surface here. The over-tourism challenge has been in the newspapers for years now, but the actual analysis and research around it is quite limited. So we think it's important to continue to study this phenomenon, and we're gonna take it at a even a closer look in this next research that we commissioned, and that is gonna come out in September 2026. It's gonna be focused on Italy and Spain, and in particular on urban tourism. So we want to know, Italy and Spain has got some of the most overcrowded cities in terms of tourism. We want to know how within these cities, how is GetYourGuide customer behaving compared to the rest? How is it spreading across the cities compared to the rest? And how is it engaging with these different neighborhoods? And then another important piece is going to be to measure how many of them actually go to the inner areas of these countries. So areas that are unknown to the general public, how many are going and how are they distributing across these areas. So we want to go a step even farther from the analysis that was done and measure that kind of value specifically for inner areas. This is coming in September. We're gonna definitely, do the usual announcements and public communications about it. So stay tuned, and maybe we do another webinar next year about it.
I would enjoy that. And so, Pio, for the other studies, so there's France and Italy available at the moment. Is that right?
Correct. So there is France and Italy for yes, they were done a little bit similarly, and so with the numbers that we have seen.
And is that the QR code here that people can use to get those studies? They're free, are they?
Correct. So here you will be redirected to a landing page where they can download the research that was done on Italy. That's the landing page, and then if you want to know the French study as well, you can write me an email. It's fresh. It's a fresh study that we just published this few weeks ago, so we can share the correct link for the French one as well.
That is wonderful. Pio, it has been an absolute pleasure to go through all these insights with you. Really, really exciting stuff that we can kind of gauge impact like that. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for your invitation. It was a pleasure.
And we'll see you on the next Fast Track session. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.